Hello everyone, welcome to this video by B2 Gaming. Today we're playing War Game Red Dragon, the Busan Pocket Campaign. They're about to tell us about it, so let's listen.
June 10th, 1987. South Korean dictator Chung Do-hwan, having reached the end of his official presidential mandate and willing to step down, announces his choice for a successor. This appointment, which oversteps any electoral process, triggers the wrath of the students and the liberals, who were hoping for democratic reforms. June 10th to the 18th, 1987. In a matter of days, over 1 million protesters take to the streets all over the country. U.S. forces in Korea are ordered to remain on lockdown in their barracks. North Korea does not fail to notice the situation in the south. Agents infiltrate designated circles in order to increase the level of chaos, while military forces are put on alert. June 19th, 1987. While police and security forces are about to be overwhelmed, President Chun mobilizes the army in the streets. Hard-pressed and panicked by a hostile crowd, an officer orders his troops to fire. In a matter of minutes, the shooting spreads all over the streets of Seoul. June 19th to the 21st, 1987. The crackdown is brutal, resulting in over 1,000 casualties and many more arrests. June 21st, 1987. With U.S. troops still confined to their barracks and the ROK army deployed in the streets, North Korean leader Kim Il-sung decides the time has come for Korea's reunification. June 22nd, 1987. When the North Korean artillery barrage rolls over the DMZ at dawn, U.S. and ROK units, disorganized by the civil unrest, are taken by complete surprise. June 22nd to the 27th, 1987. Within a few hours, the first lines of defense are overwhelmed. Within a few days, the battered U.S. and ROK units are pushed back to a last perimeter around the vital harbor of Busan.
Well, that's the pre-story. Major, I'm sorry, but I cannot get through the general headquarters. All communications with the front are cut off. Wait, yes, I think I managed reaching an advanced post to the 3rd Infantry. I'll put you through now. This is Sergeant June, 3rd Infantry Regiment. They thrashed us. They're coming straight at you. They're not even stopping to take prisoners. At least 1 armored and 2 infantry regiments, supported by more artillery than imaginable. Our HQ has just blown up, and we have only 1 defense line left. Communications breakdown, Major. I'll try to get through to our other headquarters, and to the U.S. General Headquarters in this region. In the meantime, I'm giving you the reports on enemy troop movements. So here we are. Major, I managed contacting the American headquarters. Should be getting information on their objectives shortly. Not quite done with the intro. In the meantime, here's the situation. Busan must not fall before American reinforcements arrive, which is in 3 days' time according to their promise. We are holding the 3 peripheral sectors, and the enemy is surrounding us. We have a few airborne and ground reinforcements. They should enable us to make up for our losses, which will be inevitable. Good luck, Major. Okay, and now we've finished with the intro, and we can take a look at the forces we've been given. This mirrors the actual war where the U.S. was pushed to Busan, and then they went with a naval attack at Seoul, the Incheon. We're looking at our planes. This was pre-recorded on Twitch, and I'm adding my voiceover now, so this will be a little bit disjointed potentially, but I'm unable to comment and play, so it has to be this way for me. We're looking at our enemies and trying to match forces so that tanks get either tanks or anti-tanks to destroy them, and enemy infantry has our infantry as well to face them. You're going to need infantry, tanks, and at least 1 support in each region to have a reasonable amount of combat power. Then you're also going to want to look at what planes you're facing. Right now the enemy planes aren't deployed, except for one, and so we can't exactly tell. I've moved my SEALs up to face the right flank, added the tanks to Daegu. These are the bomber units, or that was the fighter. So bombers to the left, fighters in the center. The right flank lacked a lot of logistics, so they get the support company, the FOBs, to help them cope. We decide to save our money and not spend anything, knowing that we'll need it for the counterattack. Here the front's divided into 3 sectors. Have to defend left, center, and right to keep them from getting all the way behind you to the 2 Busan sector. The plan here is to set an even defensive line. It's a bit weak on the left, but has lots of command units to build up the points quickly, and then we'll bring in our heavy tanks. 90-point tanks are very, very strong in this 1987 period. They might be the heaviest tanks of this period. The Keys and the Abram types. When you're looking for a total victory, the key is to not lose more than 30%. And so here in the center, I'm putting the very cheap Yebigun infantry forces. Even if I lost all of these Yebiguns, it would not equal 300 points of losses. I've got somewhere around 400 or 500 points looking at it. It would be the 30% value that I can't go over in terms of losses and still get my total victory. In plenty of battles, total victories aren't necessary, but they always really, really help in the campaigns. Because the further you get ahead earlier, the more it'll snowball. So those early total victories will make your campaigns much, much easier. The key with infantry in general, and especially weak infantry, is to get them in buildings. If not buildings, at least in the forest. Also, my transports aren't very combat effective, so I push them a good 2 kilometers or so to the rear. 2 kilometers, about the range of tank cannons in this game. Depending on how good, it's also around the range of the anti-tank missiles. The good missiles range between about I think it's, in this game, I think it's kilometers, so 1.5 kilometers to about 4.5 kilometers. but taking those long range shots is pretty ineffective. Usually they'll just back out of range, or they'll drive behind a building. That's why I prefer tanks to the cheaper vehicles that launch the anti-tank missiles, but they can't be effective. Move the Yet again to take some rocket shots and take these guys out, but it costs me. You see here, just a few seconds of battle with that many units able to see you. Machine guns took out 25% of that unit. Still, I took out one of the armored vehicles crossing the bridge, and now you see 3 Yebigun units and 1 anti-tank unit. Anti-tank unit's in the center, and so it's hopefully going to take the least amount of fire, but since it's got the crosshairs above it, that means it can see the enemy and it is firing its weapons. So I'll start to take a toll on this large group of armored personnel carriers that are coming at me. The VTT 323. One of the better APCs, in my opinion, that they could bring against us. They're very effective against helicopters. So don't ever counterattack this type of APC with helicopters. You will regret it. They're completely ignoring the right flank, so I redeploy that defensive tank. And as it looks like the center is destined to fall, I begin bringing in the reinforcements on the left early to reinforce the defense rather than to go on the attack. The smoke that they put down to cover their infantry to an extent helps me because it prevents their fire from the north. I'm only dealing with the fire coming out of the east in this particular sector, that urban conglomeration there that's taken the most losses. Now I've got 3 keys. These are the Abram types. Notice the command unit going in there. If I had more time, I'd go after it, but I'm too hard pressed right now. I swapped the infantry to the front and the anti-tank behind. You can see that the tanks and anti-tanks are steadily whittling down these VTTs, and that the computer has taken losses far faster than I have. You see the F5 coming in there dropping napalm. As soon as they drop, you're going to move the tank or vehicle they're targeting. And as you can see, you can just barely outrun it. If you move before, they'll generally retarget. And the planes are actually pretty good at hitting a moving target. So don't think just being moving is enough. You have to change direction once they drop, or they will hit you almost always dead on. Yeah, way better at hitting a moving target than you are, I promise. You can now see that actually the troops in the center aren't going to get wiped out, although the troops on the right flank of the center are looking much more like they will. So with this somewhat in hand in the center, I decide it's time to launch that counterattack. To the left there's no cover. There's a bridge and no cover leading straight to their rear line where they've been firing a lot of artillery at me. So I'm going to try to move my tanks in range and destroy their artillery. In the meantime, I've brought in my APCs, which are pretty terrible against other APCs, but decent enough against infantry, given their low cost, and Browning machine guns. So since the infantry is targeting my infantry, my APCs can actually get a fair amount of damage here. And also, I want them to use their RPGs on my APCs rather than my tanks. Even if they don't destroy your tank, being under fire causes your units to become shaken, then panicked, and eventually they can even rout, where they'll retreat even when you won't order them to, which can be very frustrating. But just being shaken reduces your accuracy, so you want your best and most damaging units to remain calm and deal out that damage. As you see there, the keys and the infantry eventually took out enough of them to get us that total victory, though it was pretty close. A few more losses, maybe just 10 or 20, and it wouldn't have been a total victory, it would have been a major victory, which would not have been enough to push them out. The nicest thing about pushing them out means that when they come back, they only control one sector unless they had choppers. A chopper moving in gives you the middle sector, land unit moving in gives you the peripheral sector. That's why it's smart to move in with both land and helicopter units when you can manage it. Gives you two sectors to work with, a lot more opening tactical options. So they only attacked us in one place, Daegu, and we completely defended, drove them back. You can see the units that are driven back, they've got the exclamation mark and the red triangle underneath them. You're looking at their forces, you want to look at the number of units that they have, their morale, and the number of initiative points they have. 2 points of initiative means they cannot attack you until the next turn. All 2 points of their initiative are taken when they move. A 3-point initiative, such as an infantry unit, will be able to lead an attack on the same turn that it moves. That's why I've been checking on those enemy units, and that's why I wasn't attacked on the flanks, because they were waiting for their tank units to catch up to the infantry. This sector contains my SEALs, which have some helicopter power to them. So there's a small tank unit, including some of my best tanks, the Abram, or the Korean best tanks, the Abram type keys. You want your tanks, when possible, to be accompanied by recon, so that infantry can't sneak up into RPG range, and your tanks are firing from their maximum range, because non-recon spotting range is roughly half of its firing range, whereas a recon spotting range is roughly 1.5 times its firing range, except in the case of other recon or stealthy units, then it's more like just inside their attack range when they'll see them. This is all roughly, I'm not an expert on those, this is just what I've noticed based on experience. So you may be able to find guides with the more accurate numbers on spotting and concealment and whatnot. But you generally want to have a line of recon across the whole map to make sure helicopters and sneak attacks don't slip through and get to your rear areas, your FOBs, and your command units. One disadvantage I have in this sector is I have less total forces, which means the initial force I can bring in is smaller. It's always a percentage of your total forces that you get to bring in initially. So I've got elite forces, I don't have much forces, and so it's very small. You can see by the bars on the right that it's also a pretty small enemy force. Their losses are already less than mine. That bar represents the losses you can take before the battle's over. Your bar is empty and the battle ends. Time runs out, the battle ends. You kill all the command units of your enemy, the battle ends. You or your opponent can also choose to retreat, which is the same as losing all your command units, except that you don't actually lose any remaining command units. They will survive, but you'll lose the territory it'll be essentially a total victory for your opponent. Just preserve some losses. By retreating, you assume you're headed to a total victory. Your opponent's headed to a total victory anyway, and you just preserve what you can. It's the only reason to retreat. Otherwise, it's far too costly. So the only advantage I have, the only really expendable units I have are the Hueys, the UH, IH, or 1H. Yep, those choppers in the front are the Hueys that dropped off my troops. And they now get to be the frontline scouts since the enemy isn't attacking me, which is pretty rare. I'm going to go attack him. But first I've got to develop a battle group that's got enough capabilities to fight the type of force that they have. They'll have at least 1,000 and probably more like 1,500 points of forces. So a lot of tanks, a lot of vehicles, a lot of support, and a lot of infantry. At least two of those things are going to be present. Potentially all of them in moderate amounts. Planes are very bad at spotting, but in this case I'm using my less valuable plane to make sure that there's no AA present as my helicopters move forward, because my plane's more likely to survive than my choppers. I can immediately evac it once I see a deployed chaff or I see the rockets incoming. I see that my enemy's trying to sneak a command unit around the back. If your command unit and the enemy command unit both occupy a region, it goes neutral until one of you move or is destroyed. So one of the best tactics is sending a force with a command unit so that as soon as you arrive, you lock down the command unit and prevent any reinforcements from arriving. I generally don't do that because it risks the 100-point plus command unit. The minimum cost of any command unit is 100 points. Right now, at this point in the campaign, I don't think I have any units other than command units that cost that much. FOBs are 75, the tanks I'm using are 90 or 95. These choppers aren't the best choppers, they're 55. The Js. Was the AHJ, AH1J, or IJ? I can never tell if these are ones or I's. I'm assuming I. I spot an enemy FOB, which means either the enemy has decided to be defensive or they're building up a huge force and then they're going to attack later on. Either way, I want to attack now, take the initiative and start whittling away those forces. You can see that's a bomber, it's got bombs underneath it, and so I move to intercept directly. If it was an interceptor, you might want to try to come at it obliquely from the left and the right rather than dead on. If you come out from the left and the right, it might turn to face one of your forces, which would allow the other to get behind it and unload all of its missiles. If you are targeted, you can either head straight at them and then brake as you pass them, or you can evac and hope your chaff will save you. Some good snipers there that are costing me, but it looks like that's all that's manning those buildings, which is very handy because about 8 units of infantry could slow down the push quite a lot. And if they have long-range ATGMs, they could really cover this whole approach to their command area. You can see that they moved their command unit, which will happen when they feel threatened, so that's an indication that your units are in weapons range or nearing weapons range of their command unit. So when that happens, you can kind of draw a radius around your attacking units and get an idea of where the enemy command unit is, even though you can't see it yet because it gets a stealth bonus. When you see a unit you haven't identified, keep an eye on the point value. I think I just got a 125 point kill there from the chopper, which was the command unit. The AI has the tendency to keep 2 or 3 command units in their main sector, although one of them may have been on the way to advance. But if that was the last command unit that I saw being destroyed, this battle would be over already. So that means there's at least one more. If you're still fighting the enemy, multiplayer or campaign, it means they have at least one command unit on the map. Recon units, infantry, and APCs, choppers especially, chopper recon, are the best at finding command units. You see, he comes right at me. The weaker tanks have to get in point blank range against the better tanks so they can hit their flank or hopefully even their rear armor. Generally, I'm not sure if this is a hard rule, but say your tank does 10 armor piercing and there's 5 armor. If you hit that 5 armor, you do about 5 damage to the 10 health tank. Whereas the rear armor is 2, if you hit it, you do about 8 damage. Not sure if that's a rule or if I'm making this up, but it certainly has seemed that way from my experience. The main battle tanks attacking each other's front arm, they do 1 or 2 damage attacking from the side. They'll do 4 or 5 damage attacking from the rear. They can almost insta-kill each other. All units in this game have 10 health. Not all infantry have 10 men, is one of the differences. And then all of them have those 10 health. Sometimes it's representing a different amount. I'm selecting my front tank because as it takes damage, I'll begin to reverse it to get out of range, but we managed to scare them. Their last command unit was near enough to death that they decided retreat was better than the total victory that I was about to get. So, a good victory. A total victory was on the way, but did not get there because they retreated first. Apologies if you ended up hearing the dogs there. This next mission had a couple of failures, got edited out for the YouTube version. You might still be able to catch them on Twitch if you like that sort of thing. But cut the fat, just the meat here on the YouTube. Although in this campaign you have superior stuff, in this game you have to always remember that a lot of inferior stuff is still dangerous when it's coming right at you. And that's what happened on my losses. They are quite aggressive, as you kind of have to be. When you have one territory and your opponent has the rest of the territories, you need to grab at least 1 or 2 pretty quick. Were this a multiplayer, for instance, and so oftentimes computer tactics are the same as the multiplayer. My tactics are based on the terrain. There's a town on the right, so I garrison that with infantry, and then there's open terrain on the left. So I mass up some tanks and vehicles and send them on a counterattack. While my right holds, my left is doing its best to get onto the other side of the bridge and deploy into a battle line. When closing with your enemy, there's two things to consider. Accuracy goes up as you get closer, but as you move closer, you're more likely to die. So I generally will attack from maximum range, but certain times with tanks you want to move them closer so that their cannons will hit more often. As you can see, they're attacking along all sides. My tanks are intercepting their left movement, while the movement on the right is trying to cross the river and beginning to get hit by my anti-tank missiles that are in the houses. In these cases, they're direct fire rockets that my anti-tank guys are using rather than the short-range RPGs or the long-range guided missiles. So in my mind, these are some of the best anti-tanks. They have great range, and they can't miss if their unit is killed right afterwards, like a guided weapon will never hit if the unit dies. We've cleaned up the assault force on the left, and now we're dividing it in half. Half is going to assist the defense, half is pressing into the rear and looking for these artillery pieces, because that is the main strength of the enemy. They don't call artillery the king of battle for nothing, and in a war game it's no exception. While it can be very, very hard to target effectively, when these heavy caliber artilleries hit you, it's pretty much just it. Managed to get some reinforcements and I'm sending them in. So far I've taken pretty light losses, but it might be getting at around 30% or even more. I don't remember where we started. If you lose your 30% threshold, the other ways of getting a total victory are forcing a retreat, which basically means you're about to kill their last command unit. Killing their last command unit is the main way of getting a total victory in the hard maps. The other method that a lot of people don't know is that if you have enough command units and you control every command sector, regardless of the fact that your enemy still has command units, but when you win, you have conquered the area. So it's an instant loss once that happens, once that final command sector is captured by your command post. But there, the tanks did their job. It didn't end up being a total victory, but like I said, total victory is not always necessary. Here in the south, we just can't lose Busan. Really, I could lose all the other sectors, and as long as I kept fighting and not losing in Busan would be fine. But I don't even want them to get into my logistical area. You see that their destruction points before defeat is pretty low, despite the fact that they've got 4 units here. The starting command point's another way of gauging how strong each force is. It's the fact that I have more starting command points means I could probably auto-resolve this battle and win it. But given this being easy, and it's probably going to be a fairly short campaign compared to the others, we end up playing it out. In the later campaigns, I auto-resolved some of the less necessary battles to keep the video length a maximum of 4 hours. Right now, all of the videos except for the final campaign are under that length, and once I get rid of the failed missions, it's possible that one will go under 4 hours as well. At this point on my Twitch, I've finished all 5 campaigns. This was the first one, and so I'm a little out of practice, as it had been a while since I did this for my own personal fun, and now I'm deciding to record a playthrough of this challenge for YouTube. The challenge being, when I first played these, it took me 7, 10, sometimes 15 turns to beat these campaigns, but I discovered just about all of them can be beaten in 4 turns or less. The exception is the final campaign, which you can't even get any of the objectives by turn 4. And also Pearl of the Orient, which even if you eliminate the enemy, forces you to wait all 10 turns, but I counted my win on the turn that I eliminated the enemy. I've set up this defense before. It's only a slight variation, so I'm not going over it. A little bit more anti-tank in this version since they sent so many APCs at me last time. But the fact is, since they are away from their home base, they haven't been able to refit any of these units. So anytime you lose an APC, whether you lose the infantry or not, that unit is not available to be spawned the next battle. And so as you can see, they're not attacking nearly as hard. It's a dozen or so APCs instead of 2 or 3 dozen, like the first time you fought this battle. The big danger here is one of their napalms hitting all 4 of my tanks, so I've divided the attacking force into 2 groups of 2, and I'm spreading them out enough that they can't all be hit at the same time. With most tanks, you wouldn't want to fire at their maximum range because they're so inaccurate, but one of the reasons why these Key and Abram type in general are so valuable is because of their high accuracy. They can get reasonable hit percentages at their maximum range as long as they're calm. Keep in mind, every level of veterancy adds accuracy, and every level of panic decreases accuracy. So if you're going to take fire, it's much better to take it with an elite unit. Looks like I was wrong earlier about the Peace Pheasant. It's actually a anti-tank, although it probably has some anti-aircraft weaponry right there. It's got very strong anti-tank missiles, which are a little bit of a waste against APCs. When I'm on the attack and in the early mission, I like to change it to very slow. So sorry if this is a bit excruciating for some players who never slow it down. But yeah. Being able to select a unit and reverse very quickly can be the difference between life or death for your tanks when they spot missiles coming in. Same thing for your planes and choppers. You can see in this attempt of taking the province, they're actually attacking the right flank. But because they didn't attack the center hard at all, my prepared attack on the left flank is going in almost unopposed. And that province on the right has the ability to call in forces from the road, from the back roads there. So artillery doesn't damage tanks very much, but the stunning and the panicking, as you can see, start calm, go to shaken, every level worse, decreases your accuracy. I'm not sure if it's the same level as veterancy increases it or not. I'm not one of the stats guys who knows all those details, although I would be interested to learn if anybody wants to comment they happen to know. This is one of my favorite, I think by far the most realistic modern war game simulator ever made. I am no military man, but I love learning about military history. I've always been a bit of an armchair general, and from what I know, this is so efficient they really ought to train militaries on this program if they don't already. So yep. The tanks and the recon working together will be able to clear these APCs before they take out my recon. Without support though, they've easily wiped it out. Recons don't carry as many RPGs as an actual infantry unit, nor do they have as many men. Some recon units do, but the average recon unit will have 5 men compared to the 10 of an infantry. You can see that's a rocket artillery hitting me, and once again, not much damage, but stunning me, very valuable. If you can stun the tanks in concert with a high armor penetrating unit attacking them, you can pretty much kill an even 100-point plus tank with a 20 or 30-point unit. No trouble, no problem. Given that they've brought in heavier weapons, these TD tanks are actually a real danger, not with their cannons, but when they get close enough to napalm. Continuous napalm will absolutely kill your heavy tanks. Does considerably more damage to be stuck in napalm than to be stuck in medium caliber artillery. Although those, you know, the 100+ millimeter artilleries, even then will take out a tank if you get stuck and they're dropping right on top of you. But as you can see, the Keys pretty much won this battle single-handedly. I hope they're pronounced Keys and not Kai, because I'm going to keep saying Key. See by the bar at the end, this battle's about over, just looking for that final win and trying not to lose one of these extremely valuable tanks. It's quite possible that with the last kill or two that they will get to be elite, assuming some of them aren't already. Those two, you can see they're veterans with 3 chevrons. The 4th chevron is elite. And it looks like the Peace Pheasant's taken out these napalm tanks. Is what gets me the final points and over the hump. It's actually a flawless victory, folks. Nice. Nice. Yeah, don't try this at home, although already having softened them up in the first battle, it wasn't too hard. Major, I have U.S. headquarters on the line. Well done, Major. Busan did not fall. We're about to reach Seoul in order to cut supply lines. The plan is simple. Capture the port of Seoul, secure Churwan and Sokcho sectors before day 10. However, you'll have to keep hold of Busan for the whole time. The Nimitz bring several squadrons as backups, and many support battalions can be deployed. Once you've taken Seoul, Major, given your position and your knowledge of the front, you'll be supervising the northern landing. It's all up to you. So here's the USS Nimitz, named after Admiral Nimitz, who was essential in winning the Battle of Midway. Now there's one key to winning this on turn 3, which is the earliest possible, and not turn 4, and that's to divide these Marine units. A Marine unit with 3 initiative can actually disembark and then move and then attack. So here on turn 2, we can take both Seoul and Chorwan with our Marines. And only by taking both sectors on turn 2 can we achieve our victory on turn 3. So yeah, this being one of the points in my playtest where I got stuck, went ahead and saved so that I would not mess it up the second time. Well, I did get Chorwan on day 1. I messed up and didn't have enough force to take the final sector on day 3. So you have to be a little careful with how you organize, and in these types of assault operations, helicopters and infantry are far, far more valuable than tanks. Tanks slow you down. You cannot attack for a full turn, and this is all about blitzkrieging. So surprisingly enough, in the Red Dragon blitzkriegs, you don't bring tanks. Tanks are excellent on defense. You can stick them in the forest and blow away whole convoys of APCs, but on offense, they're getting hit by planes. They take longer to deploy, so you gotta wait the whole turn. They're really just a mess to be the main force leading an attack. Maybe it was true in this age. It certainly seems to be true in Ukraine. But you can see I'm holding that Marine unit in reserve. It's going to disembark and then move into Chorwan, and with those choppers take that province. But before we can do that, gotta secure Seoul with a total victory. And Seoul is pretty heavily defended, so that won't be easy. Total victories require you to either destroy all their command units before they run out of before they run out of points and lose the battle. They have a command unit and lose the battle, but you've lost too many. It's a major or minor victory or some other variation based on the ratio of points lost. Problems with having a dog and being a caster. I'm trying to decide what will be a bit more effective for the fight. We probably already have enough deployed already, but bringing in the planes can only help. You can see that especially their support is extremely varied and strong, and has the potential to do the most damage to me. Also, those fighters are reasonably scary to both my ships and my planes. So naval command ships, especially 150 point plus ones, are incredibly powerful against these coastal naval type provinces. a single one by itself can take out hundreds of points of enemy if they don't have what it takes to take it down and can't find cover. So the strategy here is to take the buildings, which would be the only good cover, and then position my navy to give me a broad area of land to land forces and begin a heavy assault to take the provinces that are too far away to have naval cannon support. These units are American response forces, so in most cases far better than what you've been fighting with in this campaign till now. In particular, the Marines and their infantry fighting vehicles are quite good. Those LVTPs, they are probably the meanest APCs in the campaign. Although keep in mind this is in 87, so if you're used to building those decks, most of your best units will come from the 90 plus years, and so wouldn't be available in this campaign at all.
My stats and myself are ready, sir.
They make a real bad choice and rush out onto the beach, and I begin to fire at them with everything. Really effective right now are those small straight, the STR-90s. Their missiles are extremely accurate and are almost always a one-hit kill on a vehicle. Basically, any non-tank is going to be insta-killed. So it might have done some damage, might have taken out some of my monitors or light forces, but I hold back my command unit. This is the only really valuable thing of that force that I could have lost. Also would have sucked to lose the Oliver Hazard that's forward positioned, but they only did a tiny amount of damage to it. They're really durable. You need anti-ship missiles, barring that. Tank cannons are the next best, barring that. ATGMs are the next best, but really infantry have to be firing them because the vehicles are blown away very quickly by the naval cannons, and they're easily identified, whereas the infantry can often fire without being revealed. So that opening fight went about as well as it could. But given the province, given the forces they started with, their rate of reinforcement is going to be much better than mine. They're probably getting 15 or 20 points compared to my 5. Although it's about to go up when I capture Bravo. Let me bring in reinforcements more quickly. In a situation like this, where your opponent both starts with a big force and will be able to replace it with the reserves they have, you have to both win that initial fight and then move quickly to hit their second line before it's reinforced by those reserves. So I need to get deep into that middle sector before they get enough reinforcements in it to have that type of force that they opened with again. They're choosing to defend the city, and like I said, that's the cover from the naval weapons. So I move my Perry to a spot where it can fire down that road, and then I move my forces to clear everything to the west of that road. The biggest thing I lost in that opening battle was ammo, so I call in 150 points worth of supply, and with certain positions. I can resupply both my ships and my choppers with this.
Why does it always have to be me?
Something people don't consider is when you're bringing in a command unit that's infantry, you can
Guns ready, sir.
drop infantry out of an infantry fighting vehicle and put that command unit, as it disembarks a naval transport, into the infantry's infantry fighting vehicle, so it doesn't have to slowly and unsafely move or cross the map. You can see the parry was a bit out of position. It shifts that it can fire down the whole length of that highway. And we also discover that we're under artillery attack, but we pretty much have to just hold position
Yes, sir.
so that we can continue taking this town. This battle is by far the beefiest battle yet of the campaign. Taking out this many forces in any of the other maps would have already given me a total victory.
What's the deal?
But that total victory amount of kill points you need is a percentage of how many they start with. Identifying their radar, what do they call them?
Okay.
Their radar SAMs, those Pyongs. Are they the Pongays? Paugays? Can't quite read it. Yeah.
Someone need a guardian
Those are really expensive SAMs. 55 points for this period is quite expensive. They have the best accuracy and damage of any of the North Korean anti-air. But my Prowlers are seeds designed to hit them with over 60% accuracy for their missiles. My monitors and my light straight ships are moving in on the artillery. But as you can see, my main strength is in my big ships, which can't enter the river. I don't have a lot of infantry or vehicle strength that can move into the area right now. That's what I'm trying to build up as quickly as possible. As you can see, the reinforcements are constantly flowing in. $55 points. Before the game, I checked and saw that there were 6 of those. Excuse me. 6 of those SAMs, and I have noticed taking out 4 at this point. So I'm beginning to bring in the helicopters now that there's less AA threat. However, really good SAMs outrange the Scalos type, the anti-tank missiles on the strong choppers. So you want to be very careful bringing them in when the enemy has expensive radar SAMs, or in the later years, the radar cannon guns. But you can generally tell how dangerous something is by the point total. Its point cost. 25 and 30 point AA are dangerous. 50 plus point AA are very dangerous. And especially in this 87 era, 55 point is probably the best they can afford, the best they can bring in at all.
Where do you need us, sir?
So ships, some infantry, and the choppers that I'm bringing in are fronting this assault and doing pretty well. Once again, I'm using planes to go in before the choppers. In this case, the seed planes are the best. If they detect a radar, they'll shoot at it. If they get targeted by a missile, they have the best ECCM, the electronic countermeasures, the chaff that they deploy to distract and confuse the missiles. Certain later AA units will use different types of targeting that the chaff is less effective at confusing. So try to keep an eye on what type of AA you're facing when you're using choppers, planes, and seeds. Because a seed is totally ineffective against a non-radar AA. I go back a bit to focus on macro and bring in new forces, but the main axis of advance is here along the river and then through the forest in the middle of this fob sector, Tuyanan. I call it the center sector when it's positioned like this. Navy SEALs are one of the most effective recons in the game, basically combining a strong, an elite infantry with the recon ability and stealth. Only downside is their high cost. I also kind of prefer the normal SEALs as they have AA. I don't think these recon SEALs do. Maybe I'm wrong.
What's up, sir? Starting the engine.
The monitors are incredibly high damage, but they're also very vulnerable to armor penetrating weapons, even more so the straight 90s.
You spotted something?
MD-5000s, maybe one of the most annoying recons in the game.
Sky is ours.
You have to kill them, but they're very slippery.
Waiting the order, sir. Not my one.
Can't tell you how many times I've chased an MD-5000 into enemy recon, enemy AA, rather. See, they've got two constant streams of reinforcements coming in.
The captain and his crew welcome you aboard. Checklist completed. Ready to go.
Big kill there. The command
Rain down on them crawlers.
unit has been taken, which will cease the reinforcements coming down this road, though some that were already called for might continue to arrive. Given that I was a little outnumbered on that side, I'd call in the napalm. Napalm extremely effective when you hit crossroads with them.
Okay, what's the deal?
Even if the enemy avoids them, going around the crossroads slows them down so much that you gain the time you need either way.
Fly zone is hot.
So I was thinking maybe the monitors have napalm, but I don't think that's the case. That's another mission where you get those.
Captain and his crew welcome you aboard.
Get those infantry had amphibious armored personnel, so they're actually able to be deployed via the naval sector, but it took them a long time to make landfall, with their speed being maybe a third that of the naval landing craft.
Checklist completed. Ready to go.
But you can see by the bar on the right that I've finally about broken the enemy,
Someone need a guardian angel?
but they're still getting reinforcements from that back sector. I can find their last command unit or finish off their numbers, then it's game over. So at this point, I decided we can risk more choppers, and as well we can afford them. Pretty much bringing in planes and choppers as fast as I can afford them, with the exception of those 2 units of Marines, which took a while to arrive. They were what I could spend my money on. They would get to the front fast enough to affect the battle. Those Marines, almost too late to even participate. And I've identified 2 command unit, one moving and in between the sectors, and one stationary in Chorwan, which I haven't identified, but is almost certainly in the forest. There's a lot of forest there, so I can't be certain exactly where in the forest. So it's a rush. It's generally better to kill command units than to get the total victory by just killing regular units.
What can the infantry do for you, sir?
If you kill all the command units, you're guaranteed that total victory, whereas if you just empty their bar, if you've taken more than 30%, you will get a major victory or below. I'm using my ships to blockade any retreat to that direction, and the choppers are about to sweep the rest of the map. At this point, I've taken out everything I can see, and one of the challenging things to do is to keep the recon with the forward units, and also to keep the forward units supplied with ammunition. It's one of the reasons I prefer having helicopter units. One command unit, but still it wasn't the last one. You have spooked the last one though. Like I said, as you're entering or nearing weapon ranges, oftentimes this will spook the command units into moving to try to preserve their lives, get out of weapon ranges, find a safe area. They will return if their troops retake a sector, but until that time they'll head away from a province. You can see I found a sector of enemy.
Where do you need us, sir?
Even the best choppers can be taken out quickly with just machine gun fire from infantry or APCs. So moving above forest is very dangerous, given that it gives those types of units stealth bonuses. And it looks like it's the elite. The elite North Korean Jokwaday. Pronouncing that wrong, I'm certain, but yeah, those units.
Where do you need us,
And in
sir?
fact, that elite type just became officially elite.
At your service,
But, yeah,
sir.
best thing to counter infantry in woods, assuming you can't just pace the woods with artillery, is to send other infantry in. So I stop wasting my choppers and start going in. But I almost lost enough choppers there to get to the 30% threshold. To this point, it was almost a flawless run. A couple of ships, a couple of vehicles, but hardly any choppers had gone down. But never underestimate regular or elite infantry in the forest. In this case, they even had the shilkas, which are in fact the best machine gun AA that the North Koreans possess. And so 340 was not that close to 30%, but as you can see, all those losses came at the end, just about. That one little sector as I was trying to get to that last command unit. So be careful clearing forests, especially with choppers. and valuable but low armored vehicles. But a major soul's ours. Thanks to the port, we can land there safely. However, be able to keep in mind they can counterattack. They could counterattack if I didn't destroy them all, but they took such heavy losses that even a unit that doesn't lose all of its command vehicles can be destroyed if they've taken heavy enough losses in their other units. And that's what occurred there. Every single unit brought in a majority of their forces and lost a majority of their forces, and so was destroyed. The enemy didn't have any command units there, and so Chorwan fell without a fight. They will be back. They will fight for it. And that's the other crucial point. You can't advance from Chorwan or any other sector if that sector is contested. So in addition to getting the total victory in Seoul, I need the total victory in Chorwan, as well as the total victory in Sokcho. All three are essential to get the turn 3 victory. A major victory will not do it. This is the last turn I have to survive down there, so I'm just giving it a little bit of attention, making sure it doesn't suffer any defeats. Trying to decide if I should form a reserve or redeploy it all. And I decide to auto-resolve that battle since there's no air present, and there might be air present later. Hopefully weakening that force and making their breakthrough less likely. May 29's been spotted by our scouts, so things are about to get heated for our pilots. What just happened? Well, major victory wasn't good enough, so we cut that out. Like I said, it had to be a total victory. So, snip, snip, edit that almost but not quite out. And here we go again. You need the total victories. It's very easy, this campaign, when you take it slowly. But when you're trying for the speedrun challenge, it's a little more difficult. You gotta get them total victories. Can't let the enemy take out 30% of your defeat points or battle points, whatever those points are called that you see on the bar on the right. Marines in buildings, almost undefeatable. Better bring some napalm or some counter elites if you want to clear them. Bringing in a fob, which I don't normally do because normally truck supply is more than enough and can be brought in at a point where you can afford the points much more easily. It's easier to do 200 points of trucks 5 minutes into the battle than to spend 75 for the fob right at the beginning of battle. But the supply is right there, never goes away, and anti-air missiles actually eat up a lot of truck supply, so it's one of the things that trucks really can't very effectively supply.
Get there as fast as we can.
I'm spreading out because I have no air cover, and I expect those A5s to come in and start hurting me. A5s hitting my tanks before my Hawks could kill them off. I was really rather disappointed in my Hawks. Yeah, those A5s were the reason I lost the last battle. They got enough of my M60s. And then without the M60s, my Marines got overwhelmed here by the choppers. But if you can lure the choppers on top of the city, your Marines will just buzzsaw them down. Also keeping my APCs nearby. Here come the planes. But actually their choppers wander into my Hawk range and they take the first rockets. But there goes one A5. The second I worry that they're targeting my Hawks with that A5, which would be a disaster. You only get 3 Hawks in this mission. And given that it's choppers and planes that you gotta beat, you better keep them alive.
Where do you want to deliver?
One of the keys in a mission like this is to get that central infantry force in position and keep it from getting whittled down. It's going to take losses. It's fighting vehicles and infantry, but you want to keep it from losing any unit outright. Bring logistics up to repair those units to full if the opportunity presents itself. Also, when they're in heavy fighting, they're likely to run out of their anti-tank option.
Waiting for your orders, sir.
Yep. I guess you get 4 Hawks, but yeah, there go half of my Hawks. A devastating loss, and one of the only losses I can afford if I want to keep this as a total victory, given that my force size is pretty small. Small force means hardly any margin of error, and that's why I split up my tanks on the left, having them massed in a 4-tank unit. Got them all killed in the last attempt. As you can see by the bar, that first battle went heavily my way, as it needs to.
Got something for me?
Yep, and I didn't record it, but I made a practice run on this campaign only to get back in practice before I started on this series. I started making it a year ago and then stopped because of some difficulties with my fraps. Now I'm using the Twitch to record my videos. Seems to be a little less quality, but the streaming and the saving that it automatically does makes it a lot more convenient to produce larger numbers of videos. Convenient and efficient. Here I get caught out in the right by the last choppers, and the LVTPs aren't crazy expensive. If I'm going to lose something, I'd rather be them than the tanks, but they're expensive enough that these losses hurt, and they're combat effective enough that it weakens my push to the right by taking those losses. Here I'm practically screaming at my Hawks to take the shot and kill this goddamn plane, but some of the more powerful missiles can take longer to lock on and launch. At least I guess that's what happened there. Pretty embarrassing for that guy. When we get home, you're fired, bro.
Yes, sir. Air defense ready.
But whereas you only get 8 tanks in this force, and whereas in my last game I lost at least 6 of them, here I've got 3 attacking the left, looking for that command unit. They're actually advancing a command unit into Echo, which is brave. I send my last LVTP and a U.S. Marines to take it out, knowing I can get these 2 command units, it's game over. Sometimes command units are worth 120 plus. Usually 100 to 110 is what you can expect. But any armored command vehicle, I think, has a minimum of 120 points. So it's only the car command vehicles or the infantry commanders that cost 100 or 105. Also the chopper. Ironically, the chopper costs less than the chopper carrying infantry commander. But here we go. Just like last time, we destroyed the regiment. One regiment, but not the other. But this time, we took few enough losses to get the total victory. Here, even if they won, it wouldn't save them, so I give the auto-resolve. And you can definitely do a little better in those southern battles. It's just that they're not at all required to total victory them in order to win this campaign. So bring everything. Everything that can make it anyway. You can assign aircraft off of carriers to ground-based airfields, so don't forget to do that when it's prudent to do so. I probably should have done that in this game, but I did not. As you can see, I left a lot of forces on the table. I never even participated. Still, I go ahead and build up the forces here just in case I have to survive a counterattack before they give me the win. In my prep playthrough, I didn't win, so I don't remember if the win condition is just capturing this final province or capturing the final province and then holding a turn against the counterattacks. I have no idea, so I'm preparing Chirwan and Seoul to survive a counterattack of the strength that I can know. But I'm hopeful that a chopper blitz in this province, was it Sokcho, in this province of Sokcho, could get me the win. In future, there won't be a welcome all for the whole video. Just to let you know, I didn't quite understand how Twitch worked, but since I've got a little bit better at figuring out their recording device versus the Fraps that I'm more familiar with, and you won't be seeing the chat from the Twitch on the YouTube videos past this series, fortunately. Since I don't have a ton of choppers, my first order of business is to set up an infantry defense to keep my FOB and home province, starting province, region, sector safe. Once I've gotten that force, I bring in a small helicopter force that I know that I'll be expanding with all of my reinforcement points as the mission goes along. Yeah, normally you'd bring in more choppers, but I wanted to have a strong defense and not be overrun in case the enemy bum rushes me like they are prone to do. As you can see, I got a nice shell around the FOB and our commander. If there's one way of attack. It's there to the right, but the helicopters can pull back and cover that open lane. I also realize that my enemy may have choppers. Bring in an AA vehicle since I don't have AA infantry present. Given that there's no attacks yet, I decided the vehicles can move to support the helicopters. I have 3 sectors to clear, and I've spotted my enemy. While it looks like it might be unwise to challenge them, I know from the scouting that their choppers are very short range. Most of them have only ground attack capabilities.
On my way to coordinates. Out.
Helicopters are very quick to waste Scalos type, or Saclos, I'm not saying Scalos, but Saclos type missiles. They'll always choose the same target, and they almost always hit. So if all of them are firing their missiles, you're wasting 60 to 80% of them, as some will miss and some will not hit before the target is destroyed. You can see the strength of these expensive choppers. 70+ point choppers can kill basically anything but AA and sometimes tanks. If they don't have anti-tank missiles on that chopper, or even if they do have missiles but they're attacking a heavy tank head-on, they're not going to be able to kill it. But these Saclos type missiles have about 20 armor power, but your best heavy tanks are going to have about 20 frontal armor. Keep that in mind. In addition to the missiles, however, the cannons of most choppers are capable of penetrating armor, just rarely the frontal armor. That's why if you've got a few choppers and are trying to take out one tank, move into a triangle type formation around it so that at least one of your choppers is getting side armor, and hopefully one is even getting rear armor penetration.
Checklist completed. Ready to go. What can the infantry do for you, sir? Sky is ours.
Even though the enemy's being aggressive, they're doing it really smartly. Whether that's an accident or not, who knows. But they're garrisoning infantry to the left, and then they're attacking from cover to the right. However, there's a wide open area they have to make it through, so if I can get enough choppers in position, I'll be able to turn it into a kill box.
I need the tail rotor check.
Or if you're the ones in the kill box, it's more commonly referred to as a clusterfuck. You know.
Sky is ours.
Kill box if it's yours, clusterfuck if it's theirs. Just
Sky
so we're clear on that.
Sky is ours. I need the tail rotor check.
Fubar, also acceptable and a little less likely to get caught by the sensors, and so I'll probably switch to that in future. But we're all adults here, except for you, kid. Get out of here. Other than that one kid, we're all adults here,
Sky is ours.
and I can't be blamed for kids sneaking in.
Just give us some coordinates,
bar on the right shows that this has been going very well so far. The enemy is nearing empty in terms of their ability to withstand, but my ammo is also empty. That's why you have to protect your fob, because about 5 or 6 high point choppers fully rearming can empty half a fob easy.
Artillerymen at target.
Anti-tank missiles
We're in a hurry.
in particular seem to take a huge amount of supply. After that, AA missiles seem to take the next most amount of space. Repairing doesn't take that much supply. Ammo and fuel are going to be what drains those trucks and fobs more quickly. Got a command unit up there in the north. Big, big hit. And here's one of their final pushes, and the rearmed choppers have rearmed just in time to meet them. My opponent had the types of SAMs here that they had in Seoul. These choppers would be falling out of the sky being used this early. In Seoul I had to clear them with seeds, but here they didn't have enough AA present, if any at all.
Someone need a guardian angel?
And yeah, it's a massacre. You see by the craters just where their forces are getting pummeled the hardest.
Someone need a guardian angel?
But yeah. I don't think it's in doubt anymore, and now it's official. Total victory. Well, I took some losses, not that many. You might notice they also retreated the wrong way and they're now encircled. But total victory, enemy's cut off from its rear and its entire army's routing. Some political personalities in Pyongyang are trying to contact us for negotiations. Thanks to you, the communist regime may collapse soon. It's a turning point in the history of Korea. How about that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages? We have done it. We have successfully completed this challenge, this speed run. It cannot be done faster. Maybe it can be done better, but it cannot be done faster. Thanks everyone very, very much for watching. It's one of my first YouTube series, one of the first videos in a long time, so I really hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you come back, subscribe, watch some more. Bye-bye everyone. Have a great day.